The holographic decree shimmered above the central plaza of Carapace Prime, casting jagged blue light across the obsidian spires of the Zorathi capital. Thousands of the crustacean, like citizens, stood in perfect rows, their segmented carapaces reflecting the glow as they remained utterly still. The only movement came from the Vexillari Herald, its avian wings unfolding with ceremonial precision as it unrolled the scroll, like membrane across its talons. The message boomed across the plaza in rhythmic clicks, translated instantly by the implants in Dr. Lena Park's skull. By order of the Zorathi Imperium, all human dance is henceforth banned within Imperial space. This chaotic, unpredictable movement is deemed disruptive to galactic order and a threat to stability. Lena's fingers tightened around her glass in the dim, lit bar aboard the USN Cadence. The amber liquid inside trembled slightly as the ship's engines hummed beneath her feet. Around her, the human crew muttered curses, their faces illuminated by the flickering broadcast. "They don't understand," Lena said, swirling her drink. "Dance isn't just movement, it's war." Lieutenant Marco, Tempo Ruiz, snorted, spinning a data chip between his fingers. "Tell that to the stiff. Shells they think were just flailing around like idiots." On screen, the Zorathi diplomat, a high-ranking official with a carapace polished to a mirror shine, stepped forward. Its mandibles clicked with disdain. "Your species' lack of discipline is evident in these performances." A holographic projection flickered to life beside it, showing a group of humans breakdancing in 0G, their bodies twisting in impossible arcs. This disorder has no place in civilized space. Captain Elias Vasquez leaned against the bar, his cybernetic legs whirring softly as he shifted his weight. "Civilized," he repeated, rolling the word around like it was a bad taste. "They call locking down every system, controlling every trade route, civilized." Lena tapped her fingers against the glass, her eyes never leaving the screen. "It's not about order, it's about fear. They're terrified of anything they can't predict." The broadcast cut to a Vexillari envoy, its feathers ruffling as it added its own proclamation. "Any human found engaging in rhythmic movement will be detained. Any vessel broadcasting unauthorized frequencies will be impounded." A collective groan rose from the crew. Tempo flicked the data chip into the air and caught it with a sharp snap. "So much for the Lunar Swing Festival next week." Stomp pushed off the bar, his legs clicking into place. "They can ban it all they want, doesn't mean well stop." Lena smirked. "You planning to teach them a lesson, Captain?" Stomp's grin was all teeth. "Oh, they'll learn. Just not the way they're expecting." The screen switched to a live feed from the Zorathi capital, where a group of human traders had been rounded up in the plaza. Their wrists were bound. But one, a young woman with neon green hair, was swaying slightly on her feet, her shoulders rolling to a beat only she could hear. A Zorathi guard snapped its pincers near her face. "Cease that movement immediately." The woman didn't stop. If anything, her motions grew more deliberate, her hips shifting in a slow, deliberate rhythm. The guard's antennae twitched in agitation. "You will comply," it demanded, its voice rising. The woman smiled. "Or what? You'll arrest me for dancing?" The guard lunged, but she sidestepped with a fluid grace, her bound hands somehow not hindering her motion. The crowd of Zorathi citizens, usually so still, stirred, their carapaces clicking in what might have been surprise. Lena leaned forward, her breath catching. "Look at them. They don't know how to react." Stomp crossed his arms. "Because they've never seen anything like it. They don't move unless ordered. They don't feel the beat." On screen, the woman was finally subdued, but not before Shed spun twice more, her laughter ringing out even as the guards dragged her away. The Zorathi diplomat's mandibles clenched. "This is why the ban is necessary. Humans are uncontrollable." Tempo chuckled. "Damn right we are." Lena set her glass down with a decisive click. "They think this is about control, but it's about something much bigger." Stomp raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Freedom, she said simply. The freedom to move, to feel, to live in a way they've forgotten. The broadcast ended with a final sweeping declaration. The ban is effective immediately. All human vessels will be subject to inspection. Silence settled over the bar. Then Stomp straightened, his cybernetic legs hissing as they locked into place. Well then, guess we've got work to do. Tempo spun the data chip one last time before pocketing it. What's the plan, Captain? Stomp's grin was sharp. We remind them why humans don't follow rules. Lena stood, her eyes alight. And how do we do that? Stomp turned toward the door, his voice dropping to a low, determined growl. We dance. The dim glow of bioluminescent algae pulsed through the corridors of the melodic reverie, casting shifting blue patterns across the rounded walls. Captain Elias Vasquez adjusted the calibration on his cybernetic legs, the servos whining softly as he tested their weight distribution in the Melodian ship's lower gravity. Around him, a dozen humans moved in sync with the ship's ambient harmonics, some swaying, others tapping feet in complex rhythms against the resonant floor panels. Keep the tempo, Vasquez called over the thrumming vibration of the ship's core. Melodians don't just hear rhythm, they feel it in their bones. That is our advantage. Dr. Lena Park crouched near a pulsating wall node, her datapad synced to the ship's harmonic feed. Fascinating, she murmured. Their entire architecture is tuned to specific frequencies. No wonder the Zorathi hate this place. It is alive with motion. A group of Melodians hovered nearby, their gelatinous forms rippling in time with the humans' movements. One, taller than the rest, with deeper violet hues, extended a tendril toward Lieutenant Marco Tempo Ruiz as he executed a flawless zero-G spin. Your species bends where ours flows, the Melodian observed, their voice a chorus of overlapping vibrations. Yet the patterns align, Ruiz grinned, catching himself on a handrail. That's the point, friend. Zorathi move like clockwork, predictable, stiff, but us. He launched into a rapid series of breakdance pops, his limbs striking sharp angles before melting into fluid transitions. We break the pattern. A murmur passed through the Melodians, their bodies shimmering with approval. The elder Lena had dubbed them harmony, pulsed a deep crimson. The Imperium once tried to silence our songs. They failed. Now they fear your dance for the same reason. Vasquez stomped his left foot, the impact sending a subsonic pulse through the deck. Because it works. He gestured to the humans scattered around the chamber. Look at them 3 weeks ago. Half these kids had never fired a weapon. Now they're learning to fight by dancing around bullets. A young woman, Private Jenna Choi, demonstrated, cartwheeling past an imaginary attacker before driving her heel into an invisible opponent's gut. It is not just evasion, she panted, wiping sweat from her brow. It is misdirection. They aim where we were. Lena tapped her datapad, pulling up a holographic replay of their last training session. The Zorathi neural response time is seconds slower when processing irregular motion. Their military doctrine relies on anticipation, structured formations, predictable angles. She zoomed in on a frame where Choi had dodged a simulated plasma burst by arching backward at the last second. But this breaks their brains. A sudden discordant chime cut through the harmonics. The Melodians recoiled, their forms contracting in distress. Harmony's voice sharpened. Intruders, Vexillari scouts. They've detected the resonance leak. Ruiz was already moving, slapping the comms panel on his wrist. Cadence, we've got company. Lock onto my signal and prep the pulse emitters. Vasquez didn't hesitate. Every combat positions. Melodians, amplify the bass frequencies. Let's give our feathered friends a warm welcome. The humans fell into formation, their movements shifting from practice to preparation. Choi and 2 others braced near the entrance, their bodies coiled like springs. Ruiz flipped a series of switches on a jury, rigged console, syncing the cadence's subsonic array with the reverie's harmonics. Lena gripped Vasquez's arm. If we push the resonance too far, it could destabilize their ship's core. He met her gaze, his cybernetic irises flickering with reflected light. Then let's hope they like dancing more than breathing. The first Vexillari scout burst through the doorway, tall, feathered, and rigid as a statue. Its beak clacked in disapproval. By order of the Zorathi Imperium, you are in violation of galactic statute. Choi moved. A spinning kick knocked the scout's legs sideways, its ceremonial armor clattering against the floor. Before it could react, 3 more humans flowed around it, their limbs a blur of motion. The Vexillari's eyes widened as its balance faltered. Ruiz hit the final switch. The cadence's pulse ripped through the chamber, a wave of subsonic energy that made the very air vibrate. The Vexillari screeched, their rigid postures collapsing as the rhythm twisted their equilibrium. One clutched its head, feathers ruffling in distress. "Cease this heresy!" Vasquez stepped forward, his boots thudding in perfect time with the pulse. "You came to stop us from dancing." He spread his arms, the servos in his legs humming, then tried to stand still. The melodians surged, their bodies resonating with the pulse until the walls themselves throbbed with the beat. The Vexillari staggered, their precise movements reduced to desperate flailing. One collapsed to its knees, beak clacking in helpless frustration. Harmony's voice rose above the chaos, triumphant. The rhythm unmakes them. Lena watched, her scientist's mind cataloging every twitch, every falter. They're not trained for unpredictability, she realized. Their entire culture is built on control. Vasquez grinned, spinning on his heel as the last scout crumpled. Then let's give them something they can't contain. Outside, the cadence's engines flared to life, its hull vibrating with the same unstoppable beat. Somewhere in the dark, the Zorathi fleet would be listening. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was about to move. The outpost alarms blared in jagged pulses, their warning tones clashing against the smooth harmonics of the Melodian sanctuary. Captain Elias Stomp Vasquez didn't flinch as the red emergency lights painted his cybernetic legs crimson. He just tightened the straps on his gravity boots and grinned at the dozen humans scrambling into formation. "Looks like the party's starting early," he called over the rising chaos. Dr. Lena Park slammed her data pad onto the resonance table, sending ripples through the liquid surface. "Vexillari spies," she spat. "They must have tracked our harmonic signatures." The Melodian elder beside her pulsed with distress, their gelatinous form vibrating at a frequency that made the human teeth ache. "The Zorathi come," the elder intoned. "They bring silence." Outside the curved observation windows, obsidian dropships descended like falling knives. Zorathi shock troops poured out in perfect lockstep, their segmented carapaces absorbing the dim light. Each warrior moved with mechanical precision, their clawed feet striking the deck plating in unison. Lieutenant Marco Tempo Ruiz cursed as he watched through the glass. "They're not even running, just marching." Vasquez cracked his knuckles. "Then let's give them something to trip over." He slammed his fist against the wall panel, and the outpost's gravity generators whined in protest. The artificial gravity cut to 30%. Several Melodians immediately floated upward, their forms undulating gracefully in the low-G environment. The human dancers pushed off from walls and floor, their movements becoming fluid, unpredictable. The first Zorathi breach team exploded through the main airlock, their plasma rifles sweeping the chamber. "By order of the Imperium," their commander droned, mandibles clicking in perfect rhythm. "All human kinetic displays are hereby." Vasquez didn't let him finish. A spinning kick launched from a handstand position, his cybernetic leg connecting with the lead trooper's knee joint. The brittle chitin shattered with a sound like breaking porcelain. As the Zorathi collapsed, Vasquez used the rebound to flip backwards, landing in a crouch on the ceiling. "Sorry," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Were you giving a speech?" Chaos erupted. Human dancers flowed around the rigid Zorathi formations like water around stones. A wiry woman named Ji-Yun cartwheeled between two shocked troopers, her outstretched legs sweeping their weapons aside. Ruiz executed a perfect zero-G backflip over a squad's head, planting magnetic pulse charges as he passed. The charges detonated in sequence, each blast timed to the beat of the Melodian's distress song. The Zorathi commander staggered as his troops' perfect formation dissolved into confusion. "Maintain discipline," he screeched, his carapace plates rattling. Standard suppression pattern Delta. But his soldiers couldn't compensate for the humans' acrobatics. A breakdancer named Derek spun along the floor, his legs scissoring through Zorathi ankle joints. Each impact produced sickening cracks. Dr. Park had retreated to the control console, her fingers flying over the interface. "The Melodians are amplifying our movements," she shouted over the din. "Our kinetic energy is resonating through the station's superstructure." Indeed, with every human spin and kick, the outpost's walls hummed louder, the vibrations building toward some critical frequency. Ruiz landed beside her, breathing hard. "We need to buy time." He tapped his wrist comm. "Cadence, you reading this?" The response crackled through. "Loud and clear, tempo subsonic pulse, ready on your mark." Vasquez drop-kicked another Zorathi into a wall, then used the rebound to launch himself toward the main console. "Do it." The USN Cadence, hidden in the asteroid belt nearby, unleashed its secret weapon. A deep, throbbing bass note pulsed through space, penetrating the outpost's hull. The effect was immediate. Zorathi warriors clutched their auditory receptors, their rigid bodies spasming as the rhythm hijacked their nervous systems. Several collapsed, their limbs twitching uncontrollably. The commander swayed like a drunkard, his usually precise movements reduced to jerky staggers. What is this abomination?" he slurred. Vasquez landed gracefully in front of him, barely winded. "That," he gestured to the writhing Zorathi troops. "That is the Chasha, you uptight lobster." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You banned human dance because it is unpredictable, because it breaks your neat little rules." A spinning heel kick sent the commander crashing into a console. "But here is the thing about rhythm. Once it gets inside you, you can't stop it." Outside the observation windows, the remaining Zorathi dropships were retreating, their perfect formations unraveling as the subsonic pulse disrupted their coordination. The Melodians had begun pulsing in time with the beat, their translucent bodies amplifying the vibrations until the outpost's very walls shimmered. Ruiz wiped sweat from his brow. "Think they'll get the message." Dr. Park watched the retreating ships, her fingers still dancing across the console. "Oh, they got it." She tapped one final command. "Now let's make sure the whole Imperium hears it." The outpost's comm array activated, broadcasting the cadence's pulse wave across all Zorathi military frequencies. Somewhere in the dark between stars, 100 Zorathi warships suddenly found their crews moving to a very human rhythm. The archives of the melodic reverie stretched in every direction, a labyrinth of floating holograms and crystalline data nodes that pulsed with soft light. Dr. Lena Park moved through them like a shadow, her fingers brushing against projections that shimmered at her touch. Behind her, Captain Vasquez's cybernetic legs clicked against the floor in an impatient rhythm. "You sure this is the right place?" he muttered, eyeing the gelatinous forms of the Melodians drifting between the archives. Their bodies vibrated faintly, humming in harmony with the ship's ambient frequencies. Lena didn't look up. "They wouldn't have brought us here if it wasn't." She tapped a node, and a hologram flared to life, an ancient recording of Zorathi figures moving in stiff, synchronized lines. Their carapaces gleamed under alien suns, their limbs cutting through the air with mechanical precision. Vasquez frowned. "That's not dancing, that's a damn military parade." "It was dancing," Lena corrected. 1,000 years ago, before the purge." She swiped her hand, and the image shifted. Older now, the Zorathi moving with something almost like grace, their segmented limbs flowing in patterns that mirrored the tides of their homeworld. They called it the harmony of claws, ritual combat, courtship, even storytelling, all through movement. A Melodian elder oozed closer, its translucent body rippling with sound. "The Imperium erased it," it whispered. Its voice a vibration more than words. When they rose to power, they declared all unregulated motion a threat, too unpredictable, too free. Vasquez crossed his arms. So they banned dancing because it made people think. The elder pulsed, a mournful hum resonating through the chamber. They feared what they could not control. Rhythm is chaos to them, a beat they cannot dictate. Lena's fingers danced over another node, pulling up records of the purge, Zorathi enforcers breaking up gatherings, smashing instruments, arresting anyone caught moving outside approved patterns. They didn't just ban it, she murmured. They forgot it, made themselves believe rigidity was strength. A sharp laugh escaped Vasquez, and now they're trying to do the same to us. He rolled his shoulders, the servos in his legs whining softly. Guess they didn't realize humans don't do forgetting. Lieutenant Ruiz's voice crackled over their comms. We've got trouble. Vexillari scouts just pinged the Reverie's outer sensors. They'll be here in minutes. Lena didn't move. We need more. There has to be something here, something we can use. The elder quivered, then stretched toward a sealed node at the chamber's heart. There is one record, suppressed, forbidden. Its body split, revealing a hidden compartment where a single jagged crystal lay, the last dance of the old world. Lena took it. The moment her fingers made contact, the archives shuddered. Light exploded outward, wrapping around them, and suddenly they weren't in the chamber anymore. They stood on a Zorathi world, centuries past. The sky burned crimson, and in the center of a ruined plaza, a single Zorathi danced. Not the stiff, controlled motions of the Imperium. This was wild, desperate, alive. Its carapace gleamed with colors none of them had ever seen on a Zorathi, shifting like liquid fire as it spun, claws carving arcs through the air. Around it, enforcers advanced, their weapons raised. The dancer didn't stop. It couldn't stop. The rhythm had it, and it moved like the world was ending. Maybe it was. The enforcers fired. The dancer fell. The vision shattered, leaving them gasping in the dim light of the archives. Lena's hands were shaking. They killed them, she whispered. For dancing. Vasquez's jaw tightened. He turned to the elder. That beat, the one the dancer was moving to. You have it. The elder pulsed, low and mournful. We do it is dangerous. Good. Vasquez cracked his knuckles. Then let's give the Zorathi a reminder. Ruiz's voice cut in again, urgent now. They're here, Vexillari breach teams, 2 decks down. We need to move. Lina clutched the crystal. We can't let them take this. We won't. Vasquez grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. Time to show the galaxy what happens when you ban human dancing. Behind them, the elder quivered, then began to hum. A sound that wasn't just sound, but a pulse, a beat that made the very walls vibrate. The rhythm of rebellion. The USN cadence dropped out of warp with a shudder that sent loose tools clattering across the deck. Lieutenant Ruiz's fingers danced across the nav console, his shoulders rolling with the ship's motion like he was riding a beat. Right on tempo, Captain. Zorathi blockade dead ahead. Captain Vasquez leaned against the command chair, his cybernetic legs humming with restrained energy. Showtime. On the main screen, the dreadnought chitin loomed like a blackened claw, flanked by a dozen smaller cruisers. Their formation was perfect, rigid, symmetrical, predictable. Dr. Park's console lit up with incoming data. Their comms are locked tight. Military encryption, triple, redundant firewalls. She smirked. Good thing we're not hacking them. Vasquez cracked his knuckles. We're dancing through them, Ruiz hit it. The lieutenant slammed his palm on a glowing red button from the cadence's belly. Subsonic pulses rippled outward, invisible but undeniable. The beat thrummed through the hull, making the crew's teeth vibrate. On the bridge of the chitin, Admiral Krazik's mandibles twitched. What is that noise? His second in command staggered, carapace plates rattling. Sir, our systems are... The human fleet emerged from the dark. Not in formation, not in ranks. Dancing, the cadence rolled sideways, spinning like a breakdancer mid-windmill, her engines flaring in time with the pulse. Missiles streaked past her, missing by meters as she pirouetted between them. Hard to port, Vasquez barked. The ship obeyed, flipping end over end as a plasma burst, seared through empty space where her stern had been. Ruiz whooped, hands flying across the controls. They're aiming where we were, not where we're going. Dr. Park monitored the Zorathi comm channels. Panicked clicks flooded the feed. They're calling it witchcraft. Their targeting systems can't lock onto us. We're too irregular. The chitin's main gun swiveled, tracking the cadence's wild trajectory. Vasquez grinned. Let's give them something to really panic about. Patch me through fleet. Wide. His voice boomed across every Zorathi channel, layered over the pounding rhythm. Attention, Imperium. You banned our dance. The cadence barrel rolled through a storm of flak, her pulse emitters flaring. Now feel it. The beat intensified on the chitin's bridge. Consoles flickered. A junior officer's claws tapped involuntarily against his station. Krazik backhanded him. Control yourself. But the rhythm was everywhere, in the bulkheads in the air, in their bones. A Zorathi gunner spasmed, his trigger claw jerking. The shot went wild, shearing through a friendly cruiser's engine. The stricken ship listed, its crew scrambling in uncoordinated bursts. Ruiz laughed. They're offbeat. The human fleet pressed the advantage. Ships wove between Zorathi lines, their movements fluid, unpredictable. A destroyer executed a perfect zero-G somersault, dumping chaff in its wake as it evaded a torpedo spread. Dr. Park watched the chaos unfold. They trained for centuries to fight in straight lines. We live in curves. Krazik's furious screech echoed across the comms. Stop dancing and fight properly. Vasquez keyed the mic again, properly. The cadence spun, her ventral thrusters flaring as she kicked off an asteroid, slingshotting into a new trajectory. This is how humans fight. The Melodians joined then, their harp-like ships resonating with the pulse. The combined rhythm shook Zorathi hulls, rattling crews inside their armor. A cruiser's engines stuttered, its power fluctuating with the beat. Another veered off course, its navigation systems overwhelmed. Ruiz checked the tactical display, their formations breaking down. They can't adapt to this. Vasquez straightened, his cyber legs locking. Then let's show them what happens when the music stops. The cadence surged forward, her pulse emitters reaching critical. The beat peaked, a crescendo that made the stars themselves seem to shudder. And then silence. For one frozen second, the Zorathi fleet hung motionless. Then every ship in the human armada opened fire. Plasma and railgun rounds tore through the disoriented Imperium forces. The chitin's shields buckled under the synchronized barrage. Krazik's final transmission was a static, laced snarl. This is not warfare. Vasquez watched the flagship's engines go dark. No, Admiral, it is art. The cadence's crew cheered, their voices rising over the fading echoes of battle. Dr. Park studied the aftermath. They'll regroup, reinforcements will come. Ruiz spun his chair, grinning. Let 'em. Now they know what happens when they ban human dance. Outside, the wreckage of Zorathi ships tumbled through the void. And if anyone had been listening closely, they might have heard it, the faint, residual hum of a rhythm that refused to die. The bridge of the dreadnought chitin trembled as the beat pulsed through its armored hull. Admiral Krasic's segmented claws dug into his command console, his carapace vibrating against his will. The rhythmic assault had penetrated even the flagship's legendary defenses. "Rear port," he barked, his mandibles clicking in uneven staccato. "Sir," the human vessel, a Zorathi lieutenant, stumbled mid-sentence, his legs jerking uncontrollably. "They're moving wrong. Their ship maneuvers don't follow standard evasion patterns." On the view screen, the USN Cadence spun through a barrage of plasma fire like a dancer mid-pirouette. Its thrusters flared in time with the subsonic pulse hammering through Zorathi comms. Lieutenant Ruiz's voice crackled over the stolen frequency. "You guys really need to lighten up." Krasic slammed a fist down. "Target their engines, disable that noise." But his gunners hesitated. Their targeting systems glitched, crosshairs swaying to an invisible rhythm. One technician's claws tapped involuntarily against his console. The Admiral's antennae twitched in horror. They were infected. Aboard the Cadence, Vasquez strapped on his mag boots. Time to get personal. His cybernetic legs hummed as he tested their weightlessness compensators. Dr. Park handed him a modified comms pad. Its screen displayed the chitin's internal schematics, pulsing in time with their broadcast. "You sure this'll work?" Ruiz asked, dodging another volley. Vasquez grinned. "Ever seen a crab dance?" He slapped the airlock release. The boarding pod hit the chitin's ventral deck like a bass drop. Vasquez led the charge, his squad moving in practice sync, part breach protocol, part breakdance crew. Zorathi shock troops rounded the corridor, their rigid formations perfect for suppressing riots. "Not for this," Vasquez spun low, his augmented leg sweeping through a guard's knee joints. The armored soldier toppled like a felled tree. Behind him, Private Chen cartwheeled over a stun baton, planting both boots in another trooper's thorax. "They can't adjust," she crowed. A Zorathi officer leveled his plasma rifle, only for his arms to jerk sideways as the beat surged. His shot went wild, scorching the ceiling. "Stand still," he howled. "That is the problem," Vasquez said, driving an elbow into his mandibles. "You can't." Deep in the ship, the Melodian's harmonic amplifiers throbbed. The reverie had latched onto the chitin's hull, its harp, like strums resonating through the armor. Gelatinous tendrils pressed against viewports, their vibrations tuning the human's rhythm into a weapon. Dr. Park's voice echoed through Vasquez's earpiece. "Their ancestors buried this time to dig it up." Krasic's command throne shuddered. Alarms blared. Not the crisp, efficient tones of Zorathi design, but a groove, a syncopated wail that made his subordinates' claws tap. "Seal the bridge," he ordered, too late. The doors slid open to reveal Vasquez chest heaving, his squad arrayed behind him like the world's deadliest flash mob. The Admiral rose, his carapace plates rattling. "You vermin," he spat. "This is not warfare, this is culture." Vasquez finished. He raised his hands. The bridge crew gasped as their admiral's left claw twitched. Then his right leg, Krasic fought it. Every rigid muscle, every disciplined fiber of his being resisted. But the rhythm was inside now, pulsing through the ship, through his very exoskeleton. His front leg lifted, stamped down. The humans cheered as the most feared admiral in the Imperium took his first involuntary step. And then he danced. The streets of Carapace Prime pulsed with an unfamiliar energy. The rigid spires that had stood unmoving for centuries now vibrated with the rhythm pouring from the USN Cadence's speakers. Captain Elias "Stomp" Vasquez led the procession, his cybernetic legs striking the polished stone in perfect time. Behind him, a wave of liberated Melodians swelled and pulsed like liquid music given form. Zorathi citizens peered from their angular doorways, carapaces clicking in confusion. Their segmented limbs twitched involuntarily, as the beat wormed its way through centuries of conditioning. A young Zorathi, its shell still soft at the edges, took an unsteady step forward. Then another. Its movements were jerky at first, like a machine learning to walk. Then Dr. Lena Park caught its claw and spun it in a wide circle. The Zorathi's carapace flushed with unexpected color. "See," Park shouted over the music. "Your ancestors knew this." Above them, the dreadnought Chitin hung motionless in orbit, its weapons silent. Lieutenant Marco Tempo Ruiz had patched the dance virus into every frequency, and now the Zorathi fleet moved in perfect, unwilling syncopation. The Vexillari Herald descended on shimmering wings, its usual rigid grace replaced by something approaching a glide. It unfurled its proclamation membrane with trembling claws. The words shimmered in the air, dissolving even as they formed. "The ban," the herald began, then stumbled over the next word. Its wings fluttered in time with the bass line. "The ban on human movement is..." Louder, Vasquez barked. Ruiz boosted the signal from orbit. The herald's entire body shuddered. "The ban is revoked," it shouted, the words bursting forth like a dam breaking. Its wings beat in perfect time as it added, almost reluctantly, "The rhythm cannot be contained." A cheer went up from the human dancers. Park whooped and executed a perfect zero-G flip, despite the planet's gravity. Around them, more Zorathi youth crept forward, their shells shimmering with stolen color. An elder Zorathi tried to pull its offspring back, but the youngling's claws were already tapping an erratic pattern against the ground. Vasquez climbed onto a shattered hologram pedestal, the remnants of Imperial propaganda crunching underfoot. He raised his arms, and the crowd stilled. Even the melodians paused their harmonic oscillations. "Listen up, Carapace," Vasquez's voice carried across the square. "You tried to ban us. You tried to contain us. But humans," he grinned, wide and wild, "humans don't follow the beat." He pointed to the sky, where the cadence hung like a silver note against the stars. "We are the beat." Ruiz chose that moment to hit the final sequence. The cadence's subsonic emitters pulsed at maximum power. The ground trembled. Buildings hummed. Every Zorathi in the square felt it in their bones, an ancient memory. Buried deep, the first elder fell to its knees, not in submission but in realization. Its claws scraped against the stone, tracing patterns unseen for generations. Around it, others followed. The streets of the imperial capital became a living tapestry of motion, stiff at first, then flowing, then alive. High above, the melodic reverie added its voice to the symphony. The sound resonated through Zorathi ships, through their homes, through their very shells on 1,000 worlds. Imperial monitors shattered as forbidden movements were rediscovered. Park watched a Zorathi youth execute a passable moonwalk, its carapace gleaming electric blue. She nudged Vasquez. "Think they'll ever admit we were right?" Vasquez laughed as the first Zorathi dance circle formed, tentative but growing stronger. "Don't care," he said, "just watch." And as the rhythm spread, something remarkable happened. The Zorathi shells didn't just shimmer. They changed. Streaks of color never before seen in their species bloomed across their armor. The more they moved, the brighter they became. The Vexillari Herald, now swaying with its wings spread wide, turned to Vasquez. What is happening to us?" Vasquez wiped sweat from his brow. "Same thing that happened to us back when we were crawling out of the mud." He clapped the herald on the shoulder. "You're living, Featherbrain." On the edges of the crowd, Imperial guards still stood at attention, but their claws tapped against their weapons. Their antennae twitched to the rhythm. One by one, they joined the dance. Ruiz's voice crackled over Vasquez's comm. "Captain, you seeing this? Their whole fleet's syncing up." Vasquez looked up. The dreadnought Chitin was moving, not in attack formation, but in something resembling a slow celestial waltz. Park grinned. Told you dance was war. Vasquez watched as the galaxy's most rigid empire learned to bend. Nah, Doc, he said softly. This is peace. And as the music swelled, as shells gleamed with stolen color, as the stars themselves seemed to pulse in time, the Zorathi Imperium discovered something they'd outlawed millennia ago. They discovered joy.